Well, Donny, congratulations on your book, No Ordinary Bloke, and thank you very much for talking to Booktopia Buzz. When
Pleasure.
I was rereading the book this morning, I was really, well, I found it really inspirational. But the main thing that struck me was that it was so personal. There's a lot of personal insights into the life of the village in Sri Lanka, but also it's very revealing about your own life and you overcoming your own battles and particular difficult circumstances. So I guess where I wanted to start was to ask you, what was it about the tsunami of December 2004 that triggered you to your decision to just drop everything and go over to Sri Lanka?
Yeah, I get asked that a lot actually, and I've got to say it was a spiritual thing. I'm not a big religious dude, but it's definitely something, a higher power that was certainly working for me. That I had this drive and need to get there. In fact, I only knew two things. I had to get to Sri Lanka and I had to get to Gaul. That's the only plan I had really. And we got about 30k short of Gaul and I ended up in Peraliya there. So yeah, it was definitely a higher power. Definitely a higher power at work.
Right. But it took you by surprise by the sound of it.
Yeah, it did. It sort of, from Boxing Day, just watching this over and over and over, all this tragedy unfold on the news, I just felt compelled. I just knew I had to go there. And the catalyst was for me when Reverend Tim Costello got on the television from Gaul and said, I can't even get a truck driver here, they've all run away because they're afraid the tsunami's going to come back. And that was, well, with that, that's the very least I can do is drive a truck, and I'll go there and drive a truck if I have to, but it turned out to be a whole lot more than that.
Tell me a bit about your life before the tsunami.
I was in the Australian Army for a while and we moved extensively throughout the country. We landed in Perth in 1998 in Perth. Then I got discharged over there. Corey got picked up by the Knights and we moved over to Newcastle. We've been there for 5 years now. When this was all happening, basically I was in a pretty bad pit of depression as well. We just moved here, I didn't know anybody, I didn't have any pressing engagements or anything, so in a lot of ways I feel very fortunate that I was in a position to be able to just jump on that aeroplane and go and do what I did. But yeah, basically just an ex-army guy, and I do a bit of work for charities now, and all the book, and there's the movie, of course. So yeah, there's enough that keeps me busy.
It sounds like it really turned your life around, though, because through your experiences there, you were able to face depression and addiction, maybe really properly for the first time,
exactly,
and maybe come through the other side of that.
Well, yeah, I really realised there one day, and it was like getting hit by the Queen of the Sea Express, really, too. That what did I have to be depressed about? In the big picture of things, I was doing okay. But having said that, you can't battle that chemical imbalance. But the thoughts of being depressed, the people over there really gave me the reasons of living properly. Family is important, that sort of thing. I think we take a lot for granted here in Australia. We live very good lives here. You turn the light comes on. You turn the tap on, water comes out. And it's those little things that got me back to basics and made me really appreciate what I have. If I ever sort of feel that I'm, not enjoying what I've got, I just have to cast my mind back to that little place in Sri Lanka there and just think about how those people are still living today, but how they lived before that, after the tsunami. It's just, what have I got to be depressed about, really?
One of the things that I found really refreshing about the book is how open you are about yourself. And a lot of blokes, of course, aren't, and maybe it's uncomfortable to be vulnerable. But I don't know whether it was your intention, but the message, one of the messages was that there is help out there. Absolutely. Very important for men to be able to reach out. If that's one thing they get out of it, reach out. There's plenty of help out there. And, mental health is not like it was 10 years ago. We wouldn't talk about it probably 10 years ago, but I'm grateful that I've had this medium to be able to get that message out to men, because we don't like to admit when there's a problem generally. What about Sri Lanka itself? What changes were you able to bring about in the village?
I don't know if we brought about too many changes. I don't think it was about changing people. It was about enhancing what they didn't have, really. So, getting the school back on track, getting the temple back on track where they could go and pray, getting basic things like water and electricity, which is very difficult to do in Sri Lanka. They don't have like plumbing and that like we have. It's like when I talk about water, it's like digging a well or getting a well cleaned out. And, You know, so yeah, it's just difficult times, but we managed to get through it okay.
I find that the scale of that just really hard to imagine. I mean, it's a pretty small village, and all of a sudden they not only had to deal with 250 of their own dead, but another 1,000 or 1,500 of...
Yeah, it was more like 500 from the village and over 1,600 on the train. So yeah, so it lost a huge loss of life. The sad thing about it was the first wave came, and then the people on the train and some of the villagers got out of the train, got up on the roof thinking they'd be safe, and then of course the next big wave came through, you know, 30 to 40 feet high, you know, just wiped everything out. As far as the eye could see, just, yeah, nothing left.
And what about the expectations on you Westerners in the village, and what you could achieve and what you couldn't achieve?
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of pressure on us really, because everything we did in conjunction with the chief and his men, you know, except probably for the first latrine block that we built, you know, because that was really important. We had to get that down because, you know, people were doing their business everywhere. But sorry, I lost my train of thought there.
I was just asking about the expectations you, whether or not people thought that you could achieve more than you could.
Yeah, it took people a long time to realise that we weren't actually an organised aid agency, and that we didn't have any of the $4.1 billion that was allocated, you know, or was raised for the tsunami effort. And eventually people wanted to know where all this money was going, so, you know, we had to tell them that we were just independent. So as soon as they sort of realised that, they didn't put really expectations on us. And again, it was all done in conjunction with the chief. The chief, he had his set of priorities, what he needed as well. So he worked in conjunction.
Right, right. Well, look, it certainly is a really inspiring story, and your own story is also very inspiring. But I guess just before we finish off, I'd just like to ask you about where to from here. What other projects you're involved with now?
Yeah, it's a couple of projects I'm involved with a couple of organisations. A little organisation I set up, Brigade, and then there's MyVac. The little Brigade project is we want to build a wall for around the temple in Peraliya. And in Laos, we've got some landmines and unexploded ordnances to clear around the school. About 3 hectares of land we'll clear for them, and we'll build them a fence and a well and a toilet. So, yeah, so things are still moving on that front. There's so much work to be done out there, you know, in these third world developing countries. We don't call them third world anymore, developing countries. And, you know, there's nothing more rewarding than going to help with somebody that's less fortunate than yourself. And it really turned my whole life around, really. And, yeah.
Thank you very much again. Thanks for talking to Booktopia Buzz, and congratulations.
Thanks a lot, Tony. Cheers.